Chances are you have big goals as an athlete. Maybe you want to land a college scholarship. Maybe you want to win a national championship. And most likely, you just want to make it pro. But you're feeling stuck. You have these huge dreams and aspirations, but you just don't know how to make them become reality. And if this sounds like you must stick around to watch the rest of this video, because I'm going to share a simple but highly effective 3-step strategy for you to completely reset your brain so that you can reach towards athletic greatness with renewed focus, optimism, and energy. So let's dive straight in. The first thing that's holding you back and making you feel stuck is a hidden force, one that unfortunately millions of athletes each year fall victim to. And to best describe this, let's look at a quote from ex-England and Man United defender Rio Ferdinand. In an interview for Annie Vernon's book Mind Games, he said, "There are loads of players I could name who at 16, 17 look like world beaters, but then at 21, 22, they're subs in non-league. There comes a time in your career where the penny's got to drop, where you've got to understand decision making at the right time, when to pass, when to dribble, when to shoot, game-changing moments. Can you be the guy that sits there and takes responsibility?" And the great players do. The key thing here is that the penny's got to drop. Or in other words, you need to have an epiphany moment where you realize that you don't have it all figured out. Many athletes throughout their childhood and most of their teens and sometimes even early 20s just coast. They go through the motions because they're talented and skilled. But when they're on the cusp of playing at the elite level, they struggle. And that's because they have never made an effort to learn the things they don't know that they don't know. Those are the things Ferdinand is talking about. All the things surrounding decision making. Whether it's a sport like basketball, knowing exactly how to execute a final play to tie the game, or a track event like the 1,500 meters and knowing exactly when to make your move and kick. These are things that most athletes don't ever think about. They don't realize that at the elite level, most people are actually roughly on the same physical and technical level. But the difference between those who make it and those who don't is how they see and think about their sport. But I get it, this is a bit of a paradox, because how do you find out what you don't know that you don't know? Well, the first thing that is 100% necessary to reset your brain is to become a true student of the game. And this doesn't mean just casually watching games on your couch while scrolling on your phone. This means reading every possible book written by experts in your sport on strategy, tactics, nutrition, and psychology. It means reading autobiographies from the greatest athletes ever in your sport. It means seeking out mentors who have been there before you and those who won't just bullshit you by saying, "Oh, just keep working harder." You want to find people who can list at least 5 things straight away that you suck at, that you didn't even know that you sucked at. This is so important because if you don't ever do this, you never actually learn how to play the game. Instead, you know a random assortment of skills and techniques like how to kick a ball or how to use your core to power tennis shots. Those don't help you play the game. All games have strategies to win that are more about understanding the inner workings of how the game actually works. And if you don't pay attention to this, then you'll be like the millions of other high potential athletes who just quickly crumble the second they get a sniff at the elite level. And the next piece of the puzzle to help you achieve this is by adopting a beginner's mindset. Most athletes get complacent after a little bit of success. They suddenly think that they know it all after a few good performances, and so they keep doing the same thing. But what then happens? Well, they quickly get found out. It's why in sport there are so many one season or one hit wonders. Your brain's natural desire is to take shortcuts. And so if you have some success within your sport, then your brain looks for the default steps that it took that allowed you to achieve that success in the first place. And because of this, you're then blind to the fact that your opponents begin to work out how to outperform you, or that your sport itself is changing in terms of tactics, plays, formations, or general strategy. So to reset your brain, you have to make a daily effort to put yourself in the shoes of a beginner. This just keeps you open to new methods of training and practicing. It makes you naturally curious about trying different nutrition or recovery strategies, and it gives you the enthusiasm that comes with experiencing anything new for the first time. And when you have that enthusiasm, you're more open to learning. Your brain is primed to take in new information and make new connections. If you look at someone like LeBron James, he has been able to perform at the highest level in the NBA for over 20 years because he looks at each new season like a beginner. He's had to reinvent himself time after time as he's aged, playing in different teams with different teammates, and just had to adjust his overall game to fit with what's required of him on an individual level. He's gone from athletic specimen small forward to a conducting point guard in ways that seem so effortless. And that's because he's always thinking about the game from the perspective of a beginner. The beginner has to think much more deliberately about their actions. They don't overly rely on previous experience. And of course, in big moments, LeBron uses his prior knowledge, but he's always asking questions on how can he improve, or how does he need to adapt his game now that his body is older. Adopting the beginner's mindset is about constantly asking yourself questions on a daily basis. And some key ones to ask are, is there a better way to do this? If I were my opponent, how would they try to beat me? Or how can I improve this skill as quickly as possible? These are the questions the very elite ask themselves, even after they've reached the very top. They know that constant reinvention is necessary to thrive at the top of the sport year after year. And this idea of reinvention also then ties into the third step of our strategy. You see, reinvention relies on you changing the perception you have of yourself. And when it comes to the perception that you have of yourself, what is that made up of? Well, it's made up of your memories, all the past experiences that you've gone through in your life as an athlete and as a person. But there's a bit of a dark truth about memories that you can exploit to your advantage and use to reset your brain to finally get over your failures or move on from moments that continue to cause you to not feel as confident as you'd like to be. And that is the fact that memory is incredibly prone to distortion. Some studies suggest that up to 50%, so half of all your memories, have been distorted in some shape or form, meaning that we falsely remember things that didn't even happen, or we convince ourselves of details that are just simply not true. So if you think about this in sport, say a couple of years ago, you scored a goal where you dribbled through the entire team. Now, it might be the case that you actually only dribbled past 2 players, but in your mind over time, you've convinced yourself that it was 5 players. And that is your truth now because you 100% believe it, even though it's false. And we all do this, every single one of us, unless you have an absolute photographic memory. So how do you actually use this to your advantage? Well, you want to rewrite the past. You want to think back to a memory that was a negative experience and ask yourself these 2 questions. What did I learn from that experience? And how has it made me stronger? A great example of this that springs to mind for me, again, is David Beckham's England redemption after watching his Netflix documentary recently. In 1998, he kicked out Diego Simeone during the World Cup quarter-final and after receiving a red card was blamed for England getting knocked out of the competition. But then a few years later, he scored an injury-time free kick against Greece to take England to the 2002 World Cup. Despite the pain of 1998 and it being the worst moment of his career, Beckham now looks at that moment as a turning point that allowed him to grow stronger, become a man, and fight back to become one of his country's greatest ever players. That moment has been rewritten countless times by him over the past 25 years, and his thoughts and feelings about it have evolved over time too. But the actual moment has not changed. He kicked out at someone and got a red card. That's the factual incident that occurred. But he's rewritten the meaning of that moment time after time. And that allowed him to pursue the next goal or ambition in his playing career, and now as a highly successful businessman and football club owner. So to have the reset you're looking for, you need to rewrite your past. See the negative moments, the letdowns and the failures as blessings in disguise. Because pretty much any negative experience can be reframed and written in ways that give you a new surge of motivation and focus to turn a corner and grow as an athlete. Doing all 3 of these things we've discussed today is difficult. Each one requires a lot of persistence and self-discipline. To help become more disciplined so that you can guarantee that you achieve this brain reset, then you've really got to watch this video next.